Hi, it's Luke. Welcome back to another video on this channel. Today we'll code an MT5 indicator that highlights price imbalances, better known as fair value gaps, directly on the chart. This will be a two-part series. The first part, which is this video, we're going to create the indicator, and then in the second video we're going to use it to create the silver bullet strategy from ICT. I'm going to try and go slower in this one because I had a complaint that my videos are too fast, but yeah, let's get started. First we click the IDE icon. This will open the meta editor. Then we click new. We click custom indicator. Next. Now we need to give it a name. I'm just going to call mine fair value gaps. Once you've done that, click next, next and finish. Now I just need to clean up the template, delete all the comments, everything above the OnInit function. And then we adjust our curly brackets. First we set up two indicator buffers and two plots to hold the FVG High and the FVG Low. This tells MT5 to reserve space for the high gap and the low gap values and then label them in the journal. Next we need to include the array's MQL5 file. This gives us a growable list to store our gap objects. We then define an enum for gap direction. Now we need to create a fair value gap class to represent each gap. This will store its type, time, the high and the low. In the draw method, it builds a unique name for the gap's timestamp. It checks if that rectangle already exists. If not, it draws a filled rectangle from the high to the low, spanning from the gap's start time to a future end time. And we colour it in dark green for bullish gaps and red for bearish ones. And then finally it updates the rectangle's far edge on each new bar. Now below the class we'll add three inputs. Min points equals 10, which is the minimum gap size in points. The max points equals 200, which will be the maximum gap size in points. And then max length equals 20, which will be the lifespan in bars. We then use CArray object gaps to hold the active gap objects, and two arrays, double FVG high and double FVG low, to feed our indicator plots. In the OnInit function, we link those buffers to plots and mark them as series, so index 0 always refers to the latest bar. In the OnDeinit, we simply delete every chart object whose name starts with FVG, keeping the chart clean when the indicator is removed. Now in the OnCalculate, we treat the time, the high and the low as series. We calculate how many new bars to process, and then we loop backwards through each bar. So we check for a bullish gap when today's low minus the high 2 bars ago exceeds the min points but stays under the max points. We check for a bearish gap with the same thresholds on the inverse price difference. When a gap is found, we instantiate CFairValueGap class. We set its type, the time, the high and the low. And then we call draw with an end time offset of max length bars. We add it to gaps, and we write its high-low into the buffers 1 bar ahead so the plot aligns correctly. While still in the loop, we iterate through the existing gaps in reverse. For each gap, if its lifespan is expired or price has backfilled the zone, then we delete it. Otherwise we call draw again to push its trailing edge forward. At the end we return rates total, so MT5 knows that we've processed all bars. Now we can compile the indicator, there shouldn't be any errors. In the MT5 platform, we can drag and drop the file onto the chart. You should now see green and red rectangles marking every fair value gap. That is it for this video. And like I said at the start, in part 2 we will use this indicator to create an expert advisor that trades the ICT silver bullet strategy. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Until then, trade safe and thank you for watching.